Alright. Warm the dice up. What the F? Another one!
Well, that's going to be a miss there, Dave. Why don't you roll your next attack?
Fine. Come on, baby. Are you freaking kidding me? A 3!
Oh, man, tough break. Yeah, that's going to be a miss.
Man, let's just talk about winning D&D when you're unlucky. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Don't gamble on finding D&D content. Make it a sure thing by hitting that subscribe button.
And if it's Nerdarchy videos you'll after, you just have to ring that notification bell.
Alright, we're going to jump into this video for the unlucky players out there, but before we do, you can definitely get lucky with the sponsor of this video, Nord Games, with Revenge of the Horde minis.
These minis that are on Kickstarter, they are awesome. And it's as the name says, with a name like Horde, you're going to get a whole bunch of minis. And you've got the ability to grab, a starter set, a war band, or you can be able to dive in and grab a whole bunch. If you want one of all of the 30 sculpts that are in the primary package, you can get them all for $50. That is an amazing price point for minis, especially at the detail level on these sculpts. I know I'm definitely interested in these minis. You got to check them out. Down in the description below, check out the link to that Kickstarter and get yourself some Horde minis.
Yeah, absolutely. Check that out. You're going to love these sculpts. All right, let's jump into it. And, we're going to go over some things for really bad dice rollers. I mean, we were kind of inspired by this video for two reasons. One, you've got a player in your game, one of your games, they're terrible rolling dice, and they build a character around not having to roll dice because they're tired of their terrible luck. And that really spoke to me because dice are not always kind to me.
Yeah, I mean, that is, part of the aspect of this game is the luck of the dice rolls. When you're playing D&D, there are, either dice themselves that, are weighted poorly, or, a player just happens to have poor luck when they're sitting on the player side of the table. Dave's pretty decent when he's sitting behind the GM screen, but as a player, he just tends to roll lower than average. It is what it is. But there's ways to, game the system, if you will, because the mechanics of D&D are built around those concepts of advantage, disadvantage, and manipulating those features.
So first up, we're going to look at some races that can help you out if you're really poor at rolling dice. We got 5 of them that we can talk about.
Well, first up, we got to go with the obvious, and that's going to be HALFLING. And, the ability to reroll ones, that first time is just fantastic. It is the worst number to roll on the D20, and to be able to say, hey, I've got to be able to bump that up, with that. I mean, just that free reroll doesn't require inspiration, doesn't require, any other mechanics. That greatly increases, essentially, how lucky they really are.
And you can't roll worse. So there's that. So up next is the gnome, and what we're looking at is gnome cunning. That means they get advantage anytime they have to make a saving throw versus magic for intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. It's definitely going to help. Rolling 2 dice is better than rolling 1. I mean, even though we're terrible dice rollers, we're probably going to roll 2 low numbers, but at least maybe one of them will be higher than the other.
Next up, we have human, and if you go with the variant, you're playing with feats. Humans are going to be able to choose feats that are going to be, more in line with what you're specifically looking for. Whether you're looking to grab magic initiative to be able to grab a spell that is going to allow you to, have the enemy make a saving throw instead of you, or whether you want to grab that lucky feat to, allow you to reroll 3 times a day.
So up next, I've got 2 races. I just kind of lumped them together because they get similar. They get the same ability essentially, and that's Satyr and Yuan-ti. They both have magic resistance. So anytime you have to make a saving throw that involves magic spells, you're going to roll with advantage. And again, we already stated why that's better than not rolling with advantage. What's our last race?
All right. So last up, we're going to be looking at Hobgoblin and their ability called Saving Face. When you fail an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can choose to gain a bonus up to a max of +5 based on the number of allies that you can see within 30 feet of you. To possibly turn that failure into a success. Hobgoblins are very self-conscious. They're the leaders of, the goblinoid race. And, they try to err on that, cusp of superiority. So they definitely need to go in that direction.
Next, we're going to look at classes and things you get from classes that can help you mitigate your poor dice rolling. First up is basically spellcasters and spellcasting. This is just a blanket term that anybody can cast spells. Generally, you have the ability to choose spells that target creatures' saving throws, so you don't have to touch the dice. It's up to the GM. And not only that, save for half effects are great, because even if the DM does pass the save, something still happens. You didn't waste your action.
All right, so next up is fighting styles. And with this one, we're going to look at archery. It's a whopping +2 bonus in a game where there's not a whole lot of pluses to hit. So getting a +2 to ranged attack rolls, super helpful. And you can get it, at a lot of low levels. So really good thing to grab.
Also, I would say Great Weapon Fighter is another good one, because that gives you some dice rerolls. Again, if you roll low, rolling again is going to be helpful. All right, so now we're going to dive into some classes and some really specific abilities. For instance, the Artificer with Flash of Genius, you can actually, give other people a bonus. So this is an action where you're doing something and you're buffing an ally, so you don't have to roll any dice.
The Bard follows along the same route with Bardic Inspiration. You've got the ability to pass these things out. And whether you're the person that has bad luck or whether it's somebody else, you have the ability to pass along that die that they can add that bonus to whatever it is that they need it for. And that die scales as you gain levels.
So next up, clerics and paladins get Channel Divinity. There's a lot of different ones, and a lot of those are saving throws that creatures have to make, or it's just an effect that happens. So you're going to get a lot of use from your Channel Divinities where you might not have to touch the dice at all.
So next up, we're looking at the Rogue, specifically the Mastermind. The Master Tactician is going to allow you as a bonus action to use the Help action. Again, this is another situation that's really useful to help out your ally who might be bad at rolling dice. But here is a feature where you're still helping the party without the need of your whole action. So you're not rolling dice for this one.
Next up is Portent from the Diviner Wizard. And basically, you get to make those predetermined rolls, and then you can use them to either help yourself out when you roll poorly, or help a fellow player out that rolls poorly as well.
And those are things you can even give to the GM. So they're super awesome, super helpful. You roll low, give it out to the GM. You roll high, give it out to you or a party member. You roll in the middle, and you roll poorly later on, you know what? That might be helpful to use right now.
Next, we're going to jump into feats. There's quite a few options here. Several of them are race-specific, and, most of these are rerolls, give you more dice to roll. Starting with Bountiful Luck. Bountiful Luck is the halfling reroll of ones. The halfling spend the reaction and allow their ally to use that ability.
It's really helpful, and again, this is another one of those that's really great to help out an ally. Next up is Elven Accuracy. This is one that I've seen used quite a lot, and it's a very useful tactic. Anytime you have advantage, it turns you into super advantage. So instead of rolling 2 dice and choosing the best, you're rolling 3 dice and choosing the best. It's fantastic.
If you can't get a good roll with those 3 dice, you truly are a terrible roller. I am a terrible roller.
I've rolled 3 dice and my highest was a 7. So
we mentioned this one earlier. It is probably one of the best feats in the game. I've seen many DMs outlaw this, but if yours doesn't, Lucky is the ultimate feat for the bad dice roller.
Next up is Savage Attacker, and this one might not have made your list because it's not it's not rolling the d20. But it's going to allow you to roll 2 pools of damage dice and choose the higher overall total. It's a little bit extra, math, but it definitely ups your average damage throughout the game. So if you're bad at rolling duck even on damage dice, this is going to be helpful.
Yeah, rerolling that weapon damage is super helpful. Finally, of Warcaster. Warcaster has a lot of cool benefits, but the one we're after is getting advantage on your concentration checks for Constitution saving throws. Maybe you're a spellcaster and you're like, I'm not touching dice. I'm not even making the DM roll dice. I'm going to be buffing people all the time. I buff and debuff, and I want to make sure that doesn't get broken from my concentration, so Warcaster is going to help with that.
So the next thing we're going to look at is going to be your personality traits, those ideals, bonds, flaws, all that nonsense, because when you actually look at the core mechanics of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, those things are tied to the inspiration mechanic. So when things come up that are related to those, you absolutely are supposed to get inspiration. Now, every DM is going to handle their table differently, but the point is you want to be able to gain those inspiration.
Maybe you can offset that bad die rolling with really good role playing, and your DM will reward you with inspiration. That'll at least give you some more options there. Enjoy this discussion about unlucky players and rolling dice? Check out our video, D&D Guide to the Dice Master Characters.
You'll feel lucky every month when you get those Nerdarchy Patreon rewards. Every month we're making brand new content for DMs and players alike.
But that's not all. We do weekly patron-only live chats, monthly giveaways our patrons are automatically entered in, and more.
So until next time, stay nerdy.